Modern diplomacy, 21st of February 2024, is the Indian Ocean turning into a South China Sea again? As part of its all-out war against the Indian subcontinent, China is getting ready to station fleets of ships in the Indian Ocean in addition to its quasi-navy fishing fleets that are involved in illicit fishing throughout the Indian Ocean. Many Western critics sometimes see China's territorial expansion as the modern-day equivalent of the British East Indian Company. Under the pretense of serving different interests, Chinese vassals have a strong presence in the Indian Ocean, similar to how China established its control over the South China Sea. China views the Indian and Pacific Oceans equally, and Beijing works to protect the network of sea lanes. The German geopolitical theorist Karl Haushofer initially proposed the necessity of the Indian and Pacific Oceans in 1920, using the scholarly term Indo-Pacific Raum, Indo-Pacific Space. The perception of mutual threat has increased U.S. and Chinese security objectives in the Indo-Pacific region. Given that both oceans are essential to China's hopes of becoming the next superpower, the country's interest in the Indian and Pacific Oceans is motivated by the same factors. A close observer would see that the Indian subcontinent is more included in the expanding security dynamics in the Indian Ocean, and that aggressive action to address the issue will only exacerbate its effects. Most recently, China's research ship Xiangyang 03 visited the Maldives, causing a stir in the region's security architecture. The Maldives authorized the Chinese ship because China confirmed that it was there for peaceful purposes and to further scientific research on oceanography. Xiangyang 03's visit is related to strengthening the Sino-Maldivian relationship following the election of Mohamed Matsu, who just returned from a fruitful trip to China as the new president of the Maldives. Adding to its security concerns, the Maldives' lean towards China undermines India's regional security framework in the Indian Ocean. From an angle, the Maldives' departure from Delhi's circle is comparable to Sri Lanka's relationship building with China during the Rajapaksa administration, culminating in a strong Chinese presence in India's backyard. By creating a mess for the strategic alliance between the US and India, the Chinese sphere of influence has expanded and progressively changed the Indian Ocean region. Following the Maldives' decision to accept Xiangyang 03, India's anger was evident within a few days when a group of Maldivian fishermen were detained inside their own exclusive economic zone. Before Sri Lanka's independence, the Indian Navy submarine INS Karanj made its maiden port call outside its country when it arrived at Colombo. The INS Karanj visit is scheduled at the same time as Colombo's decision, which was issued in response to New Delhi's top diplomatic channel's request to prohibit Chinese research vessels from landing at its ports or operating within its executive economic zone for 1 year. Before he passed away, Kissinger issued a dire warning: if the current US-China hostility doesn't ease, the world will descend into chaos akin to World War I. The Great War began because of German naval expansion, which displeased Britain, as documented in history. China's naval aspirations are comparable to the Triptych trap that faced Imperial Germany during the Kaiser administration in the early 1900s. Beijing attempts to alter the Indian Ocean's equilibrium, following the same course as the South China Sea. The Chinese's strategic interest in the Indian Ocean became evident when Deng Xiaoping began to develop the Navy's expansion. When it became apparent that China would need to strengthen its presence in order to address its Malacca problem, one of the previous admirals of Plan admitted their difficulty accepting the Indian Ocean as an ocean confined to India's domination. Beijing's approach to the Indian Ocean and South China Sea is similar. For example, China started sending fishing boats to the South China Sea frequently in its early years, which eventually led to the construction of artificial islands and other marine structures. China's insistence on not recognizing the ruling International Arbitration Court demonstrates Beijing's blatant disregard for international law. There's no turning back now. Much is evident about the Chinese presence across the Indian Ocean. In addition to focusing on economic growth, China opened its first overseas military station in Djibouti in 2017 because it owed the area stability. China has been progressively promoting and extending its maritime power by carefully selecting its actions, initially through cooperation and later through slow penetration. This has resulted in a gradual tilt towards the Indian Ocean. The Chinese strategy of gradual penetration has been more successful since it is in line with undermining the nation's sensitivity to external political and financial threats. For instance, China utilized its financial clout in Colombo to legitimize its port city project and acquire port authority over Hambantota for 99 years to undercut any potential Indo-US strategic objectives involving Sri Lanka. Against the backdrop of China controlling the default Sri Lanka, Colombo's decision to approve the Chinese surveillance vessel Yuan Wang 5 in August 2022 should be seen in light of Delhi's security worries. It is not a wise guess to deny Chinese expansion in the Indian Ocean. Beijing's successful positioning of its presence from Pakistan's Gwadar port to Sri Lanka's Hambantota is beyond speculation, and the Maldives appear to have been added to China's list of targets in the Indian Ocean. The Maldivian authorities welcomed the espionage ship, which is currently under the control of China's Strategic Support Force (SSF) of the People's Liberation Army (PLA). The World According to China. The author of The World According to China, Elizabeth C. Economy, claims that the SSF's purpose is to coordinate military and civilian research. Should her theory be accurate, the frequent visits by Chinese espionage ships masquerading as scientific investigations raise grave security issues. Furthermore, China's incursion into the near perimeter of India will alert New Delhi to China's naval ambitions, thus strengthening the US-Indo security alliance and igniting other security alliances such as Quad and AUKUS. China's wolf warrior diplomacy and reliance on hard power, debt traps, and elite manipulation in the region simultaneously enhance China's status as a revisionist state. Scholars spanning multiple decades, including Mackinder and Kaplan, have frequently mentioned the Indian Ocean's enduring significance. The Indian Ocean is now the center of gravity due to China's growing influence in the region, posing a challenge to the US-India-led Indo-Pacific strategy. China is pursuing its naval development, while India and its allies under US leadership are working to institutionalize security alliances for a rule-based system. German maritime expansion in the Atlantic Ocean before World War I is comparable to the ongoing security crisis in the Indian Ocean today.